Good day and welcome back to my lesson. Today on the whiteboard series, we'll be talking about the human system. So first thing that we have to get a general idea that we want to know is that your human body is not just a human body on its own. It's actually a very complex machine made up of different parts and components. Alright, so these parts and components can be described as different systems coming together. So let's just write it down. So we know that the human body is a complex machine, right? Of some sort in a biological manner. So because it's very complex, it is made up of various components and parts. Now, these components and parts, they are actually known as systems and your organs. So we're going to talk about systems and organs, which essentially is referring to these. Sorry, just give me a minute. Various components coming together to make your human body work. All right. So first things first, what exactly is a system? Now, your human body is made up of roughly 11 types of organ systems. Some of that you would actually probably known already. But before we hop on to what exactly are these different types of systems, let's first define what is a system. Now, this is actually very important for you to understand. So basically, the system works together to keep a body function properly. Okay. It doesn't have to be human. It could be just an organism, a living thing. Functioning. Okay. So whatever I'm about to talk about doesn't just apply to humans, but we would refer to the human body very often simply because it's easier for you to understand at this stage. The systems that I'm about to talk about would actually exist in various type of organisms, be it your cat, your dogs, your mouse, even reptiles, birds. They all have their own systems that comes together in order to keep it alive and functioning. All right. So basically, we must understand that there are different there are different systems. In the body for various purposes. So what are some of these organ system that we need to know? And we don't really have to know everything about it, but at least know that they exist. Would include the digestive system, we have the respiratory system, we also have the circulatory system, as well as the skeletal, and muscular system. Alright, so these are your various systems that you should have a good understanding of what they actually do. Well, at least know that they exist. Okay? Now, your digestive system basically serves to digest food. Your respiratory system is in charge of actually the intake of oxygen and the giving out of carbon dioxide. Now, in short, there is a term to summarize this process, and that is known as gaseous exchange. Now, why is it called the gaseous exchange? That's because you are taking in you're taking in oxygen and then you are giving out carbon dioxide, something that you do not want. So in order to survive, you will actually need to take in oxygen and you want to remove carbon dioxide. Now, this is actually linked to this process called respiration, which actually talks about how do you obtain energy from the food that you have taken in. So in order to do that, you would need to actually use oxygen, and that's why oxygen is essential to us. In short, think of it as in this way. You have food that contains energy, right? However, if let's just say to get the food, you need oxygen. Therefore, without oxygen, you essentially cannot get any energy at all. So this is why it is extremely important to have your respiratory system to take in your oxygen for respiration so that you can get this energy. Now, I just want to make this very clear distinction that your respiratory system does not equate to respiration. I'm just going to put down sort of like a warning, because this is a very common misconception. All right, so your respiratory system is not equal to respiration. That is something that we need to understand. Okay, respiratory system takes in oxygen, give out carbon dioxide. Respiration refers to the process of obtaining energy from your food. I hope I'm clear about this, because this is indeed a very, very common misconception. Now, moving on, we then have our circulatory system. Now, our circulatory system, the main job is to actually circulate items around our body. It is made up of your red blood cells as well as your blood vessels. But the key thing is to deliver or transport substances around your body. And then you have your skeletal and muscular system. So basically, your muscular system would be the one that enables you to move. And do work. Whereas your skeletal system supports your muscles or the body. So in a way, these two usually comes hand in hand. They like to work together in order to achieve a function. Think about it. When you are walking, are you able to say that, hey, I'm going to move my muscles and walk without my skeleton? That's not possible, right? Because then your whole body would just be like a mess on the floor. All right, you cannot be standing up, just like this figure here without the skeleton. So your skeleton really serves to give you the shape as well as to support your muscles to enable movement. So therefore, they usually work hand in hand. Now, there are different types of components in different organ systems. We call these organ systems. Let me just put that in. Now, the reason why they are called organ systems is because each of these systems, they are essentially made up of different organs. All right? So I'm just going to very quickly and briefly show you what are the different organs in each system. So very quickly, off the top, let's start off with, I'm going to keep the digestive system last because that's one thing that we are supposed to be focusing. So basically, for your circulatory system, which serves to transport substances, you have your blood vessels, the heart, as well as blood. These are some of the organs that are commonly known to be associated with your circulatory system. Now, these organs or parts, they work together all right, in order to bring about a function. Which is actually to transport things around your body. So if let's just say you don't have any of these parts, your circulatory system would not be able to work. Okay, the blood vessels basically provides a pathway for your blood to flow through. Your heart is like the pump that actually drives the blood and pumps it around the whole entire body. Okay, and then after that you have your respiratory system, which is actually gaseous exchange. And the organs involved will include things like even your nose, your windpipe, as well as your lungs, very important. Okay, so once again, they work together to bring about the function of gaseous exchange. So if any of these organs is not working, then you will not be able to carry out gaseous exchange and you could die. All right, this is the reason why we have to be very careful in maintaining each and every single organ, and they play a very important part. And then after that, you have your skeletal and muscular system. So your skeletal and muscular system, what does it include? Well, your bones and your muscles, of course. So now they work hand in hand in order to enable you to move. So that's a very summary of the various types of organs that actually forms the various systems. So let us just summarize what we have learned so far. So we know that at the very basic level, the first thing that you have, all right, would be your organs. So then after that, your organs, all right, would work together with other organs to form a system. All right, and then after that, you can have other system coming in, which is actually formed by another set of organs and other organs to give you another system. So you have system A and system B. All right, so an example of system A could be your respiratory system, and then system B could be something like your digestive system, and together system A and B would serve to actually maintain the function of a living organism, like you and me. So as you can see, this is actually a progressive level. So organs come together to form a system, and different organs come together to form different system, and then different system would then come together to actually help to maintain or support the life form of a living organism. So, moving on, I hope we are now clear about what are organs and how it forms. Different organs come together to form different systems, and then different systems come together to maintain a living organism. So, I'm now going to talk about the digestive system. Now, one of the important learning objective is to really understand the digestive system and use it as an example to see how different organs have different functions, and then how they come together, work hand in hand to bring about the digestive system. In the later part of your education, you will learn about the different systems in depth. For example, your respiratory and your circulatory system would be covered later in great depth. But before you can learn about these two other systems, we are using your digestive system as a platform to start you off, because it is just easier to understand. Now, I have to be very frank with you. The digestive system is a chapter that requires you to memorize quite a bit of content. While the understanding part is important, you have to memorize, because a function is a function. There's no way else, or you can't really reword it anywhere else. For example, the function of the wheels on the car is to spin or turn in order to get a car moving, right? So you need to know what is the function of the wheels, either because you have experience looking at it, or you have memorized what does it do. You know what I mean? So whatever I'm about to tell you now, it's really good to pen it down, and then after that, have a good look at it and try to internalize it mentally. Alright, so let's get on down. to the digestive system. Now, I think the digestive system is one of the most, has the most interesting and fun topic to talk about, because it relates something that is so close to our hearts every single day that we're doing. You got it. Eating. All right. So first things first, what is the function of the digestive system? I think that's very important to answer. Now, the function of it is basically to break down large food substances into smaller, simpler substances. Now, the general idea of a digestive system is to take a burger, say you ate hamburger, right? And to break it down into the simpler substances that forms it so that it can be absorbed into our bloodstream. Now, think about it. Let's just say I draw you, we have a delicious chicken thigh over here. Now, food gives us energy, right? And in order to survive, every single living cell in your body would need this energy. However, when you think about it, your cells are so tiny. It's so tiny until you need a microscope to actually see it. Now, I want you to imagine, how do you then feed your cells this huge drumstick? You cannot just take the drumstick and go, hey cells, eat it. It doesn't work that way. It's just way too big. So that's where your digestive system comes in to break your food into tiny, really tiny, simple substances that can then go into your bloodstream. Now, recall, let's backtrack a little bit. Your circulatory system is to transport the substances, correct? And so one of these substances that gets transported is actually your digested food substances. So from the end of digestion, the food substance will be absorbed into your bloodstream, and what happens is that it will go to every single cell in your body that requires this food energy. All right, so it goes to every single cell, and your cells will be very happy. And then these cells can use the energy. So if digestive system doesn't happen or doesn't exist, you will not be able to break down these large food substances into smaller and simpler substances. Now, it's very important that you memorize this definition because it is something that you need to know. You have to tell me that you're not just breaking it down, but you're breaking it down into simpler and smaller substances. Now, take note, very important, it is break down and not break up. Breaking down and breaking up has got two different meanings. To break up something means that the substance has not changed at all. For example, if you take a piece of paper and you tear it into very small pieces, that is called breaking up the piece of paper. Why? Because the tiny piece of paper that you have torn, it is still paper, right? No change. However, when we digest food, we are changing it from one substance to a new substance that is simpler and smaller. Okay? So I hope I have given you an explanation of why digestion is important and how to go about defining it. So the next thing we want to talk about is, of course, what are the different organs in the digestive system. So let's start from the right off the top all the way down. Okay, so starting from the very top of the digestive system, you have your mouth that goes down to your gullet, that goes down to your stomach, that goes down to your small intestines, that goes down to your large intestine, that goes down and passes out through your anus. Okay, now right off the top, I just want to put in a few notes here. Firstly, you have to understand that these are the different organs and they perform different functions in order to get your digestive system working. So we're going to talk about these different parts and what are their main functions. Now, it's also interesting to note that your digestive system is actually one continuous tube. So if we take the mouth and then we stretch out your gullet and then your stomach and then your small intestines and then your large intestines and finally your anus over here, you will realize that, hey, it's actually one tube of muscle. Yes, it's actually like a tube, literally, of muscle, all right, that has got different functions. So different muscles, they're not the same, different parts of the digestive system. They may be a tubular muscle, but different parts of it actually have different functions. They're just of different sizes, okay? So you realize it's bigger in the stomach, it's narrow in the gullet, and then becomes narrow again in the small intestine, and then it becomes larger again in the large intestine. So it's really a continuous tube from your mouth all the way down to your anus. Next, we are now going to dive into the explicit world of what these different organs actually do. So right off the top, we are going to talk about the mouth. Now, the mouth has two functions. You must remember two functions, not one but two. The first function is to chew food. Okay, and not only must you remember the function, you also have to tell me how does it help food to digest. So when you chew food, you are essentially increasing, making it into smaller pieces. Or if you want to use a better word, is to break up. Not break down, but break up the food into smaller pieces to increase surface area. For faster digestion of food. Alright, so this needs to be memorized. So the chewing action due to your teeth, alright, will actually break up. Remember, break up, not break down. Break up the food into smaller pieces. So when they are smaller, they have a greater surface area. Think about it. when you want to dissolve sugar into a cup of coffee, is it faster to use big sugar crystals, or actually very small, tiny, fine sugar? All right, and the answer is actually using smaller sugar particles, because they just got a greater surface area. All right, so that more digestive juices can actually reach these particles. And this results in faster digestion of food, and that's how it aids in your digestive system. So this is the first function. Now the second function is that your mouth produces a type of digestive juice known as your saliva. So it produces digestive juice. Now it is good to mention that this digestive juice is actually your saliva that helps to digest food. Now at this point, it is not required for you to know this, but it is good that you understand that there are different types of digestive juices. So for example, there is your saliva, which is in your mouth. There is your intestinal juice that actually happens in your small intestines. There is your gastric juice that is in your stomach. So all these are digestive juices, and what do? They help to digest food. And then your next question to me would be, Mr. Chong, if they all help to digest food, why do you name all these digestive juices differently? Well, that's because they digest a different type of food. Now, take for example your hamburger. You have your meat patty, and you also have the bun. So your meat patty and your bun, they are different types of food, and hence they require different type of digestive juices to actually digest them. And that is why there are different type of digestive juices. This is just for you to know. If you grasp it, good for you. It is also to give you clarity when I talk about it later on. So moving on, the next organ that I want to talk about would be your gullet. Now, for your gullet, there's only one function, and it's very straightforward. It is basically to transport food from your mouth to the stomach. That's it. Very short, sweet, and simple. There is no digestion, okay? That happens. You do not have any active digestion happening here. All right. Moving on. Next, we have our stomach. Now, our stomach is very important. Now, your stomach has a few functions. Now, the first function that it has is that it churns, or rather it mixes the food with a digestive juice. So once again, remember, when you actually have a digestive juice, its function is to digest food. So obviously when you mix it up, it's going to help digest the food. So as you churn, that means basically is this motion of mixing stuff together. All right. You also sort of break up the food into even smaller pieces. Now the next thing that it does is very important. It produces this very important digestive juice known as your gastric juice. Now this gastric juice has two functions that you can mention. The first one would be that it actually kills bacteria or any other harmful organism. That's why, even though the food that you intake may not be 100% free of bacteria, you don't usually get a stomach ache. It's because this gastric juice is very, very acidic. Alright? So there is an acid in it. So sometimes people say, oh, I'm having gastric pains. That's because your stomach is actually producing too much acid in the absence of food, and that's where you get a problem, or the lining that protects your stomach from this very acidic solution, this acidic digestive juice, has been damaged. Okay, now the second thing that this digestive juice, gastric juice, does is to digest food. Now you need to mention about this digestive juice digesting food. So it is very, very important. So if you don't remember to talk about killing bacteria, you must talk about digesting food. In fact, digesting food should be the first function that you mention. I'm not saying that killing bacteria is not a function or not an important function. In fact, all functions of all organs are important because they have a role to play in order to make the whole body work. I'm just saying that if you can only remember one thing, that has to be that it produces digestive juice, which is gastric juice, to digest food. Now, after that, we move on to, from the stomach, the food then goes down to the small intestines. Now, the small intestines has two primary functions. The first one, and it's pretty important, is to produce. Can anyone guess produce what substance? You got it. It's to produce digestive juice once again. Now, this digestive juice is called your intestinal juice. So it's basically a mixture of different type of chemical substances and enzymes, which you do not need to know, but know that it helps to digest all different types of food. Okay, so it produces digestive juice to completely digest food. So in short, we say that digestion is completed at the small intestine. So if in the question they ask you which part of the digestive system does food gets digested completely or ends, it's actually in your small intestines. That's about it. That's where the cut-off point is. Anything beyond the small intestine, no, we don't consider that as digestion anymore. So the second very important function that you must remember is that the small intestines, they actually absorb the digested food through the intestinal wall and into the bloodstream. So once food has been completely digested, you want to be able to distribute it to every single cell in your body. Alright, so cells are made up, they make up every part of your body. Your fingers, your nose, your eyes, your ears, your toes, every single part. And every single cell actually needs energy in order to survive. So to do that, you need it to be transported to every single cell. And who would do this? You got that right? That is actually got to do with your circulatory system that will do the distribution. So in order for that to even happen, the food has to get into the bloodstream, which is part of the circulatory system, right? So from here we can already see that, oh, all the different systems are actually related. So your digestive system digests food. After the food is digested, we need your circulatory system to come in to take over and then distribute this digested food. So as you can see, if any one of the system is down, the living body cannot survive. Alright? So these are the two very important functions of your small intestines. Moving on, we then go on to your large intestines. Now your large intestine basically only has, I would think it's one primary function, and then there's a sub-function. So you need to know that the most important thing is that it absorbs excess water and mineral salts. These are the two items that it will absorb. Alright, and that's about it. There is absolutely no digestion. Zero digestion that happens in your large intestine. So what is inside your large intestine are food that cannot be digested. Then your question to me is, why can't they be digested? In short, in a very simple answer, we just do not have the right chemical or the right enzymes to digest food that cannot be digested by us. For example, our body is not made to take in just vegetables alone. And that's why we cannot break down fiber. We do not have the right substances in our body to do it. Our digestive juices cannot digest these fiber, and they end up being in our large intestines. Okay? So one interesting thing to note is that, remember I talked to you about the subpoint. Now your rectum, which is actually the last part of your large intestines. Okay, I'm just going to draw it out. So your large intestine, it looks something like this. It goes around and then it goes down again. This is your anus. Now, the last part over here, this part, just before your anus, somewhere here, this is called your rectum. And your rectum is the one that stores your undigested food just before it passes out of your body. Through the anus. Alright? And then after that, the very final one, your anus, serves just one purpose, and that is it allows food to pass out of your body. Alright, so with that, we actually finished looking in great detail the different parts of your digestive system and how they come together to actually bring about the function of the digestive system, which is to actually get simpler and smaller substances so that it is small enough to be absorbed into the circulatory system. So I'm just going to summarize what we have learned, okay? A few points. Now, not all parts of your digestive system carries out digestion. So, what are the parts that carry out digestion? You have your, to help us remember this, It's actually very simple. Any part that produces, you got it, yes, digestive juice. These parts actually carry out digestion. So what do we have? We have our mouth, let's recap it, which produces digestive juice, saliva. We have our stomach that produces digestive juice, gastric juice. We have our small intestines. I'm just going to use short form S, which produces intestinal juice. While it's not an absolute necessary that you should memorize the specific name of all these digestive juices, it's good for you because it helps you to make sense of what is happening, why are there different types of digestive juice being produced, and later on when you reach secondary one, you would still be exposed to these terms again. So by familiarizing with these terms at an earlier age, you actually save yourself more trouble later, having to unlearn certain things and learn new things. Okay, I always believe in getting things right straight from the beginning. Also, we need to recognize that different organ systems in your body work together. And without this interaction, this interplay, the human system cannot survive. So the example that I have given to you would be your circulatory system working together with your digestive system. So your digestive system helps to break down the food substances into smaller particles, and then your circulatory system would then take over to distribute this very, very tiny and simple substances around your whole body. And then your cells can take it up and then get energy from it. So later on, you would be introduced to your circulatory system and your respiratory system in great detail. And then you'll be able to see that, oh wow, all these different types of organ system actually work hand in hand in order to bring about the survivability of a body, a living thing. And you would realize that these organs, these systems, can also be found in other organisms besides the humans. So once again, why we are using the human? Because it's something that we all can are very familiarized with. Alright, so I hope you actually have a great understanding of this human system, at least get a brief understanding. And I have used the digestive system. We have looked at it in great detail in order to see how the organs come together to make an organ system function. So this same principle of different types of organs coming together to form a particular type of organ system is the same. But different systems have different functions. Circulatory system, transport. Respiratory system, exchange of gases. And hence they have different organs coming together. Alright, so that is the gist of this topic. I hope you had an enjoyable time. Thank you very much, and I will see you in the next lesson.